The sky above the lonely outpost was dark, filled with stars that looked like silent watchers. A human soldier named Daniel stood guard near the edge of the station, his weapon ready, his eyes tired but alert. He had been stationed here for months, guarding a quiet sector that most commanders thought unimportant. But tonight something felt different. The air felt heavy, and the silence was deeper than usual. Then he saw it. A broken craft drifting slowly near the atmosphere. Its engines dead, its lights weak like a dying animal in space. Daniel called for backup, but there was no answer. The comms were strangely quiet, so he made a choice. He launched his shuttle and moved toward the strange wreck. Inside the broken craft, he found something he never expected. Not a soldier, not a machine, but a girl. She was tall, with strange glowing eyes, her skin pale like silver. Her clothes marked with symbols Daniel could not read. She was weak, breathing hard, but even in her weakness, there was power in the way she looked at him. Daniel froze, his training screaming in his head. He knew who she was. She was an alien, not just any alien, but a royal heiress of the most feared empire in the galaxy. His orders were clear. Humans were to report and capture any high-ranking alien, or kill if capture was not possible. One squeeze of the trigger, and the problem would be solved. One squeeze, and he would be a hero to his people. But his finger would not move. The heiress looked at him. Not with hate, not with pride, but with something Daniel never expected. Fear. She was afraid, she was alone, and she was begging without words for her life. Daniel lowered his weapon slowly, his heart pounding like thunder in his chest. Something inside him told him this was not the moment to kill. This was the moment to choose. He carried her back to his shuttle, her body light but her presence heavy with danger. The moment he crossed back into human territory, alarms would sound, he would be questioned, accused, maybe even punished for not following orders. But Daniel did not care, he could not explain why. But showing mercy felt more human than pulling the trigger. As the shuttle flew back to the station, Daniel looked at her again. She was no ordinary prisoner, no ordinary alien. She was someone important, someone dangerous, and someone who might change everything. If the Empire discovered she was alive, they would come for her and for humanity. But if she died, Daniel wondered if humanity would lose something greater. Something unseen. The station lights came into view, glowing like a beacon in the endless dark. Daniel's hands shook as he thought about what he had done. Mercy was a dangerous choice. Mercy could bring war, but deep inside, he felt a strange spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this act of mercy could also bring something greater, something new. The heiress opened her eyes weakly and whispered something in her language. Daniel did not understand, but he could feel the meaning. It was not a threat, not a command, but a simple word. Thank you. The station alarms roared as his shuttle docked. Soldiers ran forward, shouting questions, pointing weapons. Daniel stood in the middle of the chaos. Holding the alien heiress in his arms, he said only one thing. His voice steady, though his heart was racing. She lives, and I will protect her. The commander's face turned pale. The soldiers looked confused, some even angry. This was not what they expected, not what they were trained for. The news would spread, and soon the whole galaxy would know. A human soldier had shown mercy to the heiress of a cruel empire. And in that moment, Daniel realized the truth. What he had done was not small, it was not simple. It was a spark that could light a fire across the stars, a choice that could save or doom humanity. A choice that would be remembered forever. The silence of space returned. But the peace was broken. The galaxy had shifted. Even if no one understood it yet, Daniel had made his choice, and mercy had begun its dangerous path. The room was silent except for the steady beeping of medical machines. Daniel sat beside the alien heiress, watching as the doctors worked to stabilize her. Her body was injured, her energy drained, yet even in weakness she carried an aura that unsettled everyone in the room. The other soldiers whispered among themselves. Afraid to come close, they all knew what she was, and more importantly, who she was. She was not just a stranger from the stars, she was blood of the Empire, the heir to a throne built on fear and conquest. Generations of humans had suffered under that empire, crushed by its fleets, humiliated by its power. To many, she was not a girl, not a victim, but the symbol of everything they hated, yet Daniel had saved her. And now the weight of that decision hung over him like a storm waiting to break. When the doctors left, Daniel stayed behind. He noticed her breathing grow steady, her eyes flutter open, the strange silver glow returning to them. For a moment she only looked at him, studying him the way a hunter might study prey. But then something changed, her gaze softened. Her lips moved and she spoke, her words were broken. Human tongue was not natural to her, yet Daniel could understand enough. "My name is Solara," she whispered. Her voice thin but clear. Daniel froze. He had heard that name before. Every soldier knew it. Every commander feared it. Solara was the heiress of the Vadran Empire, the empire that ruled half the known galaxy, the same empire that saw humanity as weak animals, a people to be conquered in time. Daniel's heart pounded. His hand tightened on the edge of the chair. He wanted to ask why she was here, why she was alone, why her ship was broken. But she spoke first, her voice low, her words filled with weight. "I ran," she said. "I ran from them." Daniel stared at her in disbelief. An heiress of the most merciless empire. Running away, it made no sense, yet the pain in her voice was real. The truth in her eyes could not be denied. She told him how her empire crushed worlds, how her family demanded loyalty through fear. She told him how she had been raised to rule with cruelty, to treat mercy as weakness. But she could not, her heart rejected it. And when the time came, she chose escape instead of obedience. Daniel listened in silence, torn between anger and pity. Every story she told revealed how different she was from the empire that had shaped her. She hated the cruelty. She hated the endless cycle of conquest. She wanted freedom, not just for herself, but for the countless worlds enslaved under her people's banner. But her voice trembled when she confessed the danger. "They will come," she said. "They will burn everything to bring me back." Her eyes locked with his, desperate yet steady. "If they know humans helped me, Earth will be ash." The words struck Daniel like a blade. He realized the weight of what he had done was greater than he imagined. By showing mercy, he had placed all of humanity in danger. One mistake, one rumor, and the Empire would descend upon them with fire and fury. Yet even as fear gripped him, Daniel felt something stronger. He saw in Solara not just a runaway, not just an heiress, but a chance if what she said was true. She could be the key to something humanity never dared dream. Peace, or at least the beginning of it outside the room, soldiers argued, their voices sharp, their anger rising. Some demanded Solara be locked away, studied, maybe even executed. Others whispered of bargaining, handing her back in exchange for safety. But Daniel stayed by her side, guarding her like a sentinel, his resolve unshaken. When the commander entered, his eyes were cold. "Do you know what you've done?" he asked Daniel, his voice heavy with controlled rage. Daniel stood tall, his hand resting on the weapon at his hip. "I know," he replied, "but I will not hand her over." Solara looked at him, her silver eyes shining with something new. Respect. She had expected betrayal. She had expected chains, but instead she found protection. In that moment, something shifted within her. For the first time in her life, she felt the meaning of loyalty not born from fear, but from choice. Night fell outside the station. The stars glittered quietly as the universe held its breath. Solara sat upright, her voice stronger now, her secret fully revealed. "I am not here to rule," she said softly. "I am here to change." Daniel listened, knowing her words carried danger but also hope. He realized the fate of two civilizations now rested in fragile trust between a human soldier and a runaway alien heiress. The room grew still, the air heavy with unspoken questions. Would humanity protect her, or would they betray her? Would mercy become strength, or would it become their downfall? As Solara closed her eyes again, exhausted but unbroken, Daniel knew one thing with certainty. This was only the beginning. The news spread through the station like fire racing across dry grass. Solara, the heiress of the Vadran Empire, was alive. Whispers filled the corridors. Voices clashed in the mess hall, every soldier, every worker. Every officer had an opinion. Some saw her as a danger. Others saw her as an opportunity. But no one could stay silent. Daniel walked through the halls, hearing the arguments. "She will bring war on all of us," one soldier muttered, gripping his weapon tighter than needed. "If we hand her over, maybe the Empire will spare us," another whispered, though even he did not sound convinced. But in the corner of the room, a mechanic said in a low voice, "What if she is different? What if she really wants peace?" The room went silent at that question, because no one knew the answer. The commander called a meeting. Every ranking officer and department head gathered in the central chamber. The air heavy with tension. At the center, under the harsh light, stood Daniel and Solara. She looked calm on the outside, but Daniel could see the flicker of unease in her glowing silver eyes. The commander's voice thundered across the chamber. Humanity has fought the Empire for decades. They enslave, they burn, they show no mercy. And yet this soldier, his finger stabbed the air toward Daniel, has chosen to protect their heiress. Murmurs erupted, some angry, some uncertain. The commander's face hardened. We must decide as one. Do we hand her over or do we shield her, knowing it may cost us everything? Solara stepped forward, her voice steady though quiet. I will not lie to you, she said. My people will come. They will demand my return. They will punish anyone who hides me. The humans shifted uneasily, her words cutting through them like blades. But, she continued, I do not want their throne. I do not want their cruelty, I want freedom. And I believe you want the same. Her words struck the humans differently than Daniel expected. Some narrowed their eyes, unwilling to trust her. Others leaned forward, as if hearing a truth they had longed for. A scientist raised her hand. If she truly rejects her empire, she could be a bridge, a chance for something new. But a soldier barked back. Or a weapon, planted among us to break us apart. The debate grew louder, voices clashing like steel. Daniel stood still, his heart pounding. He knew this was the true test, not of Solara but of humanity itself. Would they choose fear, or would they choose something harder? Something braver. Hours passed, no clear answer came. Outside, in the station's docking bay, younger soldiers argued among themselves. One shouted that protecting her would mean certain death. Another argued that giving her up would stain humanity forever as cowards. A third whispered that maybe mercy could be stronger than weapons. But his voice was nearly drowned out that night. Daniel found Solara sitting alone by the observation window. The stars stretched endlessly before them, glowing cold and distant. They hate me, she said softly, not looking at him. They fear you, Daniel corrected, but fear is not the same as hate. She turned her head, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. Fear builds walls, Daniel. Walls that may crush us both. Daniel said nothing, but he knew she was right. The next morning, a coded transmission reached the station. The Empire's voice boomed through the speakers. Cold and merciless. Return the heiress, or be destroyed. The words echoed through every corridor, shattering whatever calm remained for the first time. The humans realized the choice was no longer private. The Empire already knew. And time was running out. Panic rippled through the station. Some shouted for immediate surrender. Others prepared weapons for a hopeless fight. The commander slammed his hand against the table. Trying to control the chaos, Daniel stood tall, his voice cutting through the noise. Listen to yourselves, he said. If we hand her over, we will live as slaves. If we fight, maybe we die, but maybe, just maybe, we show the galaxy what it means to be human. Silence fell heavy and sharp. Solara watched him, her lips parting slightly, her gaze unreadable. The commander stared at Daniel for a long moment, then turned to Solara. Your presence here has divided us, heiress. But tell me this, why should humanity risk extinction for you? Solara rose slowly, her voice steady and clear. Because I am proof, she said. Proof that mercy can exist where fear once ruled. Proof that change is possible. Proof that the Empire is not invincible. She placed her hand over her heart, a gesture Daniel had taught her. If you protect me, you do not just protect one runaway. You protect the idea that kindness is stronger than cruelty, that humanity is not weak but brave. The words lingered in the air. Some hearts stirred with hope, others hardened further with doubt. But one thing was certain. Humanity had reached a line that could not be walked back. Every man and woman on the station knew their next choice would define the future. As the alarm sounded again, warning of approaching signals at the edge of human space, the test became real. Humanity would be forced to choose fear or mercy, and Solara's secret was no longer just her burden. It was theirs as well. The alarm screamed through the station, red lights flashing across steel walls. Soldiers ran to their posts. Engineers rushed to power up shields. The air was filled with urgency and fear. On the main screen of the command room, dark shapes appeared at the edge of human space. The Vadran Empire had arrived, and they had not come in peace. Massive warships, larger than anything humanity had ever built, hovered like beasts of steel and fire. Their weapons glowed faintly, ready to unleash destruction at a single command. Every human in the room felt the same cold truth. They were outmatched. They were surrounded, and the Empire knew it. A voice thundered through the communication channel, deep, sharp, and merciless. "This is Admiral Korath of the Vadrian Empire," the alien voice declared. "You have taken what belongs to us. Return the heiress Solara at once, or watch your world burn." The words cut through the room. Leaving silence in their wake, Solara stood behind Daniel, her face pale but her eyes steady. "They will not stop," she whispered, "even if you give me back. They will punish you for daring to touch me." The commander clenched his jaw. Turning to the officers, "We are not prepared for war," he said grimly. "But surrender means death just the same," voices rose, some shouting for immediate surrender, others demanding to fight. The station shook slightly as one of the Empire's ships fired a warning blast, a beam of energy tearing through empty space close enough to make the metal groan. Fear spread like a shadow. Humans had fought before, but never against a fleet this powerful. Never against the Empire's full might. Many looked at Solara with anger, blaming her for their doom. But Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm yet fierce. "Listen," he said. "We can die afraid, or we can stand and show them that humanity will not break. Even if the stars fall against us." Solara's silver eyes softened as she looked at him. In her heart, she had expected this moment. The Empire would come with fire, demanding her return, but she had not expected humanity to even consider resisting. Her own people feared the Empire too much. Yet here stood humans, fragile in numbers, weak in weapons, but strong in spirit. The commander gave orders. "All stations prepare defenses. Scramble the fighters. Lock the shields!" Engines roared. Ships detached from the station and formed a thin line against the Empire's overwhelming force. It was a hopeless defense, but it was also a statement. Humanity would not kneel easily. Admiral Korath's voice returned, colder than before. "And you dare defy the Empire? You dare place yourselves between us and what is ours? Then you will be erased from the stars." With a gesture, the Empire's ships advanced, their weapons lighting the void. The first strike came like thunder, beams of energy slamming into the human shields, making them shatter and flicker. The station trembled, alarms blared. Men and women screamed as sparks rained from broken consoles. But the humans fought back. Fighter ships darted forward like fireflies, firing missiles and plasma bursts at the Empire's massive cruisers. Most attacks bounced harmlessly off their armor, but a few left scars of fire across the enemy hulls. Every small victory was met with cheers, even as losses mounted. Human pilots died bravely, refusing to retreat, their last transmissions filled with defiance instead of fear. Daniel stayed beside Solara, guarding her as chaos shook the station. She gripped the edge of a console, her voice trembling but strong. "They will not stop until I am theirs, Daniel. You must let me go." Daniel turned to her, his eyes burning with determination. "No, Solara, if they want you, they will have to tear you from my hands, and they will learn what mercy truly means." Her chest tightened at his words, a strange ache rising within her. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever stood for her without demand or fear. For the first time, she felt the weight of loyalty not built on blood or empire, but on choice and courage. Outside, the battle grew fiercer. The Empire's ships unleashed waves of fire, while the humans pushed every system beyond its limit. Engines burned hot, weapons overheated, but still they fought. The galaxy had expected humans to kneel, but here they stood, bloodied yet unbroken. Korath's voice thundered again, this time with anger instead of contempt. "You are insects defying a storm. Surrender her now, or I will crush every last one of you." But the humans answered not with words, but with fire, their weapons blazing defiantly against the void. Solara closed her eyes, her heart heavy with guilt and hope. She had brought danger to them, yet they chose to fight beside her, and in their defiance, she saw something greater than all the Empire's power. She saw the truth, that mercy could inspire a strength her empire would never understand. The battle raged on, and though humanity was fragile, their spirit burned brighter than any weapon. For the first time in her life, Solara felt she was not alone. And for the first time in history, the Empire faced something it could not crush with fear. The battle outside the station stretched into endless hours. Human ships burned like falling stars, yet still they fought, refusing to surrender. Inside the command room, the air was filled with smoke, sparks, and the sound of strained voices shouting over alarms. Every screen showed chaos, but also courage. Daniel stood at his post, his uniform scorched, his face lined with exhaustion. He had never seen humanity fight like this, so outmatched yet so unbroken. Solara stood beside him, her silver eyes fixed on the raging war beyond the glass. Her heart twisted, guilt heavy on her chest, knowing every human death was because of her. "I cannot stay here," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "If I go to them, they will stop. Your people will live." Daniel turned sharply, his jaw tight, his voice low and fierce. "If you go, they will kill you or chain you, and then come for us anyway. Mercy to them is weakness." "They will not stop." Solara lowered her gaze, her hands trembling against the console. Her empire had taught her that power was survival, that fear was control. But here, among humans, she had seen something different. They were weak in weapons, yet strong in spirit, willing to die for each other, willing to die even for her. That strength felt alien to her, but it also felt right. Another blast shook the station, throwing soldiers to the floor. A voice over the comms shouted, "Shields at 20%. We cannot hold much longer." Panic spread. Some officers begged the commander to send Solara out, to buy mercy from the Empire. Others shouted that surrender meant slavery, that death was better. The room fractured into chaos, voices clashing like swords. Daniel's voice rose above them, steady and sharp. "We cannot win by fear, we cannot survive by kneeling. If we choose mercy, then let it be our mercy, not theirs." He turned to Solara, his eyes burning. "You are not their weapon anymore. You are not their heir anymore, you are Solara. And you can choose who you want to be." Her breath caught at his words. No one had ever given her the power of choice. Not her father, not her empire, not her bloodline. For the first time, she felt truly free, and in that freedom, a fire awoke inside her. She stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "Then I will fight, not as their heiress, not as their ruler, but as myself." The commander stared at her, his face unreadable. "You would stand against your own empire?" he asked. Solara nodded, her silver eyes blazing. "Yes, because mercy is stronger than fear, and I will prove it." The humans around her froze, shocked, unsure whether to believe. But something in her voice, something in her stance, made even the most doubtful pause. She was no longer just an alien princess. She was something greater. A symbol, a spark, a chance. Outside, human ships regrouped for another desperate charge. The Empire pressed harder, their warships unleashing wave after wave of fire. The station's lights flickered, power draining, life support straining. Death seemed certain, yet no one surrendered. Solara placed her hand on the console, speaking into the comms for all to hear. "I am Solara of the Vadran Empire, daughter of blood, but not daughter of fear," she declared. "To every soldier, to every pilot, hear me. I fight with you now, not as your enemy, but as your ally." Her words echoed across the channels, carried into every human ship. Pilots who were moments from despair found strength again, their voices answering, "For Earth, for humanity, for mercy." Daniel watched her, awe stirring in his chest. She was no longer the frightened girl he had pulled from the wreck. She was becoming something more, something that even the Empire could not control. And he knew then that their war was no longer just survival. It was transformation. The Empire's admiral roared over the comms, furious at her betrayal. "You are nothing, Solara. You are a traitor to your blood. You will be erased along with these humans." But Solara's voice cut through his fury like a blade. "Then erase me, but you will never erase mercy. You will never erase freedom." Her defiance shook the humans. Not with fear, but with pride, they rallied. Their weapons firing brighter, their ships diving harder. Every strike was a statement, every sacrifice a message. Humanity was not weak, humanity was not afraid. Humanity had chosen mercy, and that made them unbreakable. The battle raged on, both sides locked in fire and fury. But something had changed, something the Empire could not see yet. Solara's choice had planted a seed of rebellion, a seed of hope, a seed of mercy that no amount of fear could crush. And as the station shook again, as the humans bled and fought, Daniel looked at Solara and whispered, "This is war, but it is also mercy, and together, we will make sure they remember it." The station burned like a wounded beast in the night of space. Panels sparked, metal groaned, and soldiers fought with every last drop of strength they had. Humanity had stood against the Empire longer than anyone thought possible. But the truth was clear. They could not last much longer. Every passing minute brought them closer to destruction. Solara stood at the heart of the command room. Her silver eyes blazing, she had chosen mercy. She had chosen to fight alongside humans, but now she knew that choice was not enough. The Empire would never stop unless something greater than weapons broke their grip. Fear was their Empire's foundation, and she would have to shatter it. Daniel stepped closer, his face lined with exhaustion. "Solara, our ships are falling. Our shields are gone if we don't do something. Earth will be next." His voice carried no panic, only determination. But she could feel the weight of truth in every word. The humans had given everything. Yet it was still not enough. She closed her eyes, remembering the halls of her father's palace, the golden thrones, the endless parades of conquered worlds, the silence of those who dared not speak. Her empire ruled through fear, and fear silenced hope, but here among humans, she had seen something new, hope born from mercy, courage born from kindness. It was time to make that hope louder than the Empire's fear. She stepped to the central console, her voice steady. "Open a broadcast channel," she commanded. The commander stared at her, stunned. "To who?" he asked. "To everyone," she replied, "to every ship, to every world, to every soul that hears me." The officers hesitated, but Daniel nodded, his voice firm. "Do it. Let her speak." With a flick of switches, the message channel was opened, carried on frequencies the Empire could not block. Solara drew in a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly, but her voice rang clear across the stars. "I am Solara of the Vedran Empire," she declared, her words echoing through human ships, through enemy cruisers, through colonies light years away. "I was born to rule through fear, to chain worlds, to silence voices. But I refuse." Her voice grew stronger, carrying the fire of her choice. "I stand with humanity, I stand with mercy, I stand with freedom." Gasps filled the command room, but no one dared interrupt on human ships. Pilots who were moments from despair lifted their heads, hope blazing in their eyes. On alien ships, soldiers shifted uncomfortably, whispers spreading among them. An heiress rejecting her throne was unthinkable, yet here she was saying it to the galaxy. Solara's words poured out like fire. "My empire tells you fear is strength, but I tell you mercy is stronger. My empire says chains keep order, but I say freedom builds unity. Today I choose to fight not as an heiress, but as one voice among many. I choose humanity. I choose hope." The broadcast rippled across the stars. Unstoppable, some alien captains silenced it. Others listened with wide eyes, unsure. Seeds of doubt began to spread in the Empire's ranks, seeds they had feared for centuries. If the heiress herself refused fear, what power did it truly hold? Admiral Korath's voice cut across the channel, furious and desperate. "Do not listen to her. She is a traitor. She has been poisoned by these weak creatures. She is nothing." But his rage only made her words shine brighter. She lifted her chin, her voice calm and unbroken. "You fear my choice, Korath, because you know mercy cannot be chained, and once mercy spreads, your empire will crumble." Human cheers erupted across the comms. Pilots shouted her name. Soldiers pounded their fists against metal. Voices rising above fear, the battle turned. Not because their weapons grew stronger, but because their spirits did. Every human ship fought harder. Every soldier held the line longer. They were no longer just defending a station. They were defending an idea. Daniel watched Solara with awe. She had done what no weapon could. She had turned the tide with words. With courage, with mercy, he stepped beside her, his voice low but proud. "You've given them something to believe in, Solara. You've given us all something worth dying for." But Solara shook her head, her eyes glowing brighter. Not dying for Daniel, living for. Outside, human ships struck with renewed fire, driving the Empire back step by step. Even the great cruisers of the Vedran hesitated, their captains shaken by the doubt Solara had planted. The Empire's greatest weapon, fear, was cracking, and once it cracked, it could never be repaired. Korath's final threat thundered through the channel. "You will regret this, heiress. You will die with these vermin." But Solara answered with calm strength. "If mercy is my death, then let the galaxy see it, because mercy will not die with me." The humans roared with pride, their voices rising higher than the Empire's thunder. And in that moment, the turning point came, not with a weapon, not with a victory, but with a voice that broke the silence of fear. The battlefield slowly grew quiet. The Empire's great warships pulled back, their weapons dim, their lines broken. For the first time in history, humanity had stood against the Vedran Empire and forced them to retreat. The galaxy itself seemed to pause, as if shocked by what had just happened. Inside the station, cheers erupted, soldiers embraced. Engineers clapped each other's backs. Pilots wept with relief as they landed their battered ships. They had survived the storm, not because of their weapons, not because of their strength, but because they had chosen mercy, and mercy had changed everything. Solara stood in the command room, her silver eyes reflecting the light of victory, but her heart was not filled with triumph. It was filled with responsibility. Her words had spread across the stars, and now she was no longer just a runaway, she was a symbol, and symbols carried weight heavier than crowns. Daniel approached her, his face marked with soot and exhaustion. "You did it," he said softly. Though his voice carried pride, Solara shook her head slowly. "We did it, Daniel, humans and I together." Mercy did it. For a long moment, they simply stood there. Two figures from different worlds bound by one choice. Beyond human space, whispers spread quickly. Worlds under the Empire's shadow began to question their chains. Some alien leaders secretly sent messages of support, their voices cautious but hopeful. If the Empire's heiress could defy fear, maybe they could too. The seed Solara planted was already sprouting, cracks forming in walls that had stood for centuries. Admiral Korath's fleet still lingered at the edge of the stars. They had not been destroyed, but they had been shaken, and the Empire was not used to doubt. Fear had always kept their armies united, but now mercy had planted division. It was only the beginning, but it was enough. In the weeks that followed, humanity worked to rebuild. Ships were repaired, fallen were honored, and messages were sent to allies both known and unknown. Solara remained by their side, not as a prisoner, not as a ruler, but as a partner. She walked the station halls freely, speaking with soldiers, listening to workers, learning the ways of humans, and everywhere she went, people stared at her with curiosity, some with caution, but slowly. With growing respect, Daniel stayed close, his presence a shield and a friend. He had been the first to choose mercy, and now he was her anchor. One night, as they looked out at the stars, Solara spoke quietly, "My people will not stop."
"Daniel, they will come again."
Stronger than before. Daniel nodded, his gaze steady. "Then we'll be ready, and this time, we won't stand alone." She turned to him, a question in her eyes. "You believe others will join us. I know they will," he said. "Because hope is harder to kill than fear, and you gave them hope." Her heart ached at his words, but it was not sorrow, it was something new, something she had never felt in the cold halls of her empire. It was belonging. She was no longer just the heiress of a throne she did not want. She was part of something greater, part of a people who had chosen her, not out of fear but out of trust. Soon a council was formed, humans and alien voices speaking together for the first time. Solara sat among them, her voice equal, not higher. Her ideas welcomed, not forced. It was fragile. It was new, but it was real. A beginning that had never seemed possible before mercy entered the battlefield. The galaxy watched, some with hope, some with fear. The Empire raged in the shadows, plotting their return, but cracks in their power grew wider with each passing day. And wherever whispers of Solara's broadcast reached, people lifted their heads, daring to dream. On the station, Daniel stood before a memorial wall, names of the fallen glowing softly in the dark. Solara joined him, her voice gentle. "They gave their lives for me," she said, guilt heavy in her tone. "No," Daniel replied firmly. "They gave their lives for something bigger, for a future, for mercy itself." Her silver eyes filled with quiet determination. "Then I will not let their sacrifice fade. I will carry it forward, until mercy spreads to every star." Daniel placed a hand over his heart, echoing her vow without words. The stars stretched endlessly before them, cold, vast, and full of danger. But for the first time in centuries, the galaxy also held hope. One soldier's act of mercy had lit a fire, one runaway heiress had chosen freedom, and together they had changed the course of history. Solara looked at Daniel, her voice soft but strong. "This is only the beginning." And Daniel nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon of stars. Yes, the beginning of a new galaxy, born not from fear but from mercy.